You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5777, 2016. This week's Parsha is Parshas Noach. The Torah gives us the description of the events that took place during the time of Noach. His generation was wiped out by a great flood, and Noach alone survived. He created this big teva, this large ark, in which he and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives and many animals came in, and they were saved from the great flood. The Torah tells us that at the end of the flood, after many, many months of being on this boat, the water began to recede. I'd like to read to you the verses inside. It's in chapter 8, verse 5. The water was getting less and less until the 10th month. The 10th, on the 1st of the month, Niru Rashi Harim, the tops of the mountains could finally be seen. Verse 6, after 40 days, Noach opened up the window of the ark that he had made. Verse 7, he sent the crow, it went out back and forth, until the water had dried up from upon the earth. Next verse, after sending the crow, he sent the dove, to see if indeed the water had become lessened from the face of the earth. Verse 9, the Yonah, the dove, did not find a place for its foot to rest. It returned back to the ark, because the water was still upon the earth. Noach extended out his hand, took it back, brought it back into the ark. Verse 10, he waited another 7 days. He sent out the dove again from the ark. The Yonah returned in the evening, and in its mouth there was a broken olive branch. Noach knew that the water had receded from the earth. And I'd like to read to you 2 more verses. Verse 12, he waited another 7 days. He sent out the dove, and it didn't return again. Then it was clear that it was the time to go out. Verse 13, and it was in the 601st year of his life, on the first of the month, that the water had completely dried up from the earth. Noach took off the roof of the ark, and he was able to then see. He wasn't able to see before. That's why he had to keep sending these birds. He was able to then see that the earth had completely dried. Quick recap: the Torah is telling us that Noach was not able to see clearly, perhaps, if it was yet the time to go out of the ark. He sends the oriv, the crow. Then he sends the Yonah a few times. He sends the dove. Comes back one time, finally with an olive branch in its mouth. Then it doesn't come back the 3rd time, and he knows it's time to open everything up. Then he's able to see by removing the roof of the ark that the earth has indeed dried up. Now there's a beautiful medrash. It's found here, and it's also found in Shir Hashirim, that speaks about the Yonah. It speaks about the dove and the significance of the dove. It speaks about the parallel between the concept of the dove and the concept of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are nimshala ki Yonah. We are compared to a dove. And there's a reason for that, and it's significant in our Parsha, in the context of these verses. I'd like to share it with you. So the first part of the Medrash is not really the central focus of what I want to say, but it's very interesting, so I'm going to share it as well. Medrash says like this, Vayishalach es hayonah v'gomer, that Noach sent out the dove. The verse tells us that the dove could not find a place to rest. Yehuda bar Nachman Mishim Reb Shimon Amar. Yehuda bar Nachman said the name of Reb Shimon. We find that if it would have indeed found a place to rest, so it would not have returned with Chavasa. And in a parallel way, we find that the verse tells us about the Jewish people. This is in Eicha, Lamentations chapter 1, verse 3. The Jewish people dwelled amongst the nations of the world and did not find a resting place, didn't find a comfortable place. In the same way, if the Jewish people would find a comfortable resting place, they would never return to Eretz Yisrael, to the land of Israel. The Kavasa, we find similarly another verse in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 65. Uvagoyim ahem lo targia lo yemanoyach. Amongst those nations you will not be calm, you won't have a place to rest. Just like the Yonah, just like the dove, the Jewish people, they are sent out into the Gullus, into the exile, never really find a place that's really comfortable. And therefore the Jewish people ultimately will return to the land of Israel, will return to Eretz Yisrael. Now the Medrash continues. Another 7 days passed. Rabbi Yossi says, it's actually 3 weeks that had passed. He sent it a second time, it returned. And the verse tells us, Taraf Bafia, that it had an olive branch that had been broken off that was in its mouth. Mahu Taraf, what is the word broken off? The word Taraf is an unusual word. Ketil, the word Taraf can also mean that it was killed. Heich Mada Omar, and it's like that which the verse says, Taraf Taraf Yosef, that when Yaakov Avinu and Jacob saw the garment, the special garment of Joseph, his coat of many colors, that it had blood on it. So he said, Tarov Taraf Yosef, Joseph must have been killed. And this verse is using us the same word, Amarla, Ilu Shavakte Ilan Rav Havamisavid. That branch that you took was clearly a sapling in truth of an olive tree, and if you would have let it be, it would have become a great tree. So it's very interesting, and we need to understand this point, that the Yonah, for some reason, when it took a branch, didn't just take the top branch of a tree, it took a sapling, it uprooted and killed a tree that could have been. And what's the significance of that in this context? What is the concept? And I'd like to just lay down a general question. What is the idea of the Yonah? That's really the focus of what I want to speak about. What is the Yonah coming to teach us? What is the message of this pasuk? What is the concept behind the entire description of the story of the dove? And what is the significance and how does it relate to the fact that it brought back specifically an olive branch? Now let's keep these questions in mind as we continue to read the Medrash. The Medrash tells us, Mehechan hivia oisai. Where did this branch come from? Weren't all the trees destroyed by the Mabul, by the flood? Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana Amar, Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana says, Mishav Shushin Sheveretz Yisrael hivia oisai. They had been brought from branches that had been in the land of Israel. As we're going to see, the land of Israel was not affected by the flood in the same way as other countries. The way the Ramban explains it is that the rain did not fall in the land of Israel. The water may have come from elsewhere, but that destructive rain which was destroying the trees and all the surrounding areas, that rain didn't fall in Eretz Yisrael. And so there were many trees that indeed survived. So when the Yonah went and brought back a branch, it came from the land of Israel where there hadn't been so much destruction. Rabbi Levi Omar, Rabbi Levi says, Mehara Mishcha Yivia Oisoi, that the Yonah actually brought this branch from the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem to Loitifos Ar Yisrael Mabula, because the land of Israel wasn't affected by the flood. This is actually what God spoke about when he spoke to Ezekiel the prophet. It's a verse in Ezekiel chapter 22 verse 24. Eretz loy mitoyharehi, is it not a land which is pure? V'loy gushma b'yom zoam, it wasn't affected by the rain in those days of anger. So that's the first understanding, that the branch came from Israel. Another pshat the Medrash says, which seems to be a contradiction, but we will see that the idea is really the same. Rav Bibi says, Niftachu la shari Gan Eden ve'yavio isai, that the Yonah, the dove, was able to get into the Garden of Eden and brought this branch back from there. Amar Rabbi Avo says, Ilu mi Gan Eden ve'yavio isai, if it's indeed the case that he brought this branch from the Garden of Eden, wouldn't that have been better for it to bring some beautiful smelling spicy branch? Why did it bring something that's mar, something that's bitter, like the branch of an olive branch? Why didn't it bring something which is a spice? There was actually a hint within the Yonah's bringing this back. There was a message to Noach himself. It was hinting to Noach, perhaps God was hinting through the Yonah, through the dove, Mutav mar mizeh lo'imosek mitachas yodecha. It's interesting because the language of the Medrash here is slightly different than the language in the Medrash in Shir Hashirim. I'd actually like to read the Medrash there. It says, Ela remez ramza le'noach v'amar le'mari noach. The dove, as it were, was saying a message to Noach. Mar mizeh mitachas yodeh shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'lo yimoseg mitachas yodecha. I'd rather have something which is bitter, but it's directly from God Himself, from the Garden of Eden, and not something sweet which you have been feeding me on this ark. I'd rather not have to come on to a person. I'd rather get my sustenance directly from God. So, as we read the Medrash, Eina Medrash Shomer Elo Darsheni, the Medrash needs to be understood. What is it saying here? What is the concept of the branch coming from the Garden of Eden, or the branch coming from Eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel? What is the message here? Why specifically was it an olive branch? Why does it have to be something which is bitter? And what is the concept that's being taught to Noach, and to us, of course, that we'd rather have something bitter from God rather than something which is sweet from a human being? Now, it's really worth seeing the Medrash and Shir Hashirim. I'm not going to go through the entire Medrash. I'm just going to give you another little snippet of it. But there's a beautiful Medrash that talks about the Yonah, the dove, and compares the Jewish people to the Yonah, just like it has certain attributes. It's faithful to its spouse. Once it's with another dove, it never goes to a different dove. And all these different descriptions speaking about the Jewish people, comparing them to the dove. It's worth seeing it. It's in Parsha Aleph. It's the beginning of Shir Hashirim in section Samach Gimel 63. But I'd like to share with you one piece of the Medrash which is in section 64, which is immediately previous to the piece that we just read about in Shir Hashirim. And it seems to be disconnected. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with our story, but we're going to see that it's the essence of what's going on here. It says like this, a very interesting story. Rabbi Haya Yoshev Ederish. One time, Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was saying a drush. He was standing in front of a crowd, and he was saying a Dvar Torah, v'nesnamnei matzibur, and people were falling asleep. You know, as is the way sometimes, the rabbi speaks, people fall asleep. Bikesh la'oran, he decided he was going to do something to wake them up. Omar, and he said something which was, surprising. Omar, Yalda Isha Achas b'Mitzrayim Shishim Riba b'Keres Achas. There was a woman in Egypt who had 600,000 babies at one time. Not twins, not triplets, not quadruplets. 600,000 at once. There was one particular student, his name was Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yossi. Amarle man havas kain. He said, who's that? Who are you talking about? Who had 600,000 babies at once? Amarle. So Rebbe said like this, Zo Yocheved. This is Yocheved. She yolda es Moshe. She gave birth to Moses. Sheshakol keneged shishim ribu shal Yisrael. He corresponded and he had the value of 600,000 Jews. How do you know? Hadohu dichsiv, the verse tells us, it's a verse in Exodus chapter 15 verse 1, Oz Yasher Moshe uvnei Israel, that there was a song that Moses sang alongside the children of Israel. So we see the verse places them together in the same verse. We learn out from there that Moshe was shakal, he was equal to Bnei Israel, to all of the children of Israel. There were 600,000 of them. And then the Medrash goes on to bring two different verses that also indicate the same idea, that Moshe was shakal, he was equal to 600,000 Jews, and so this is what he used to wake them up. Now, the question is, what does that have to do with the Yonah? Does it have anything to do with the Yonah? It seems to be out of place. What is the concept here? What is the idea? How does it connect? And what does it mean that Yocheved had 600,000, it's cute, it's surprising, but does it have a deeper meaning? What is the deeper idea behind this little piece of Medrash? So, to start to get a hint to what's going on here, there's a Eitz Yosef who tells us how this Medrash fits in, indeed, to our discussion about the Yonah, about the dove. He tells us that elsewhere, this Medrash is quoted in a few different places, and in one of those places, it starts off this conversation by telling us that Yoinasi Tamasi, which is the verse in Shir Hashirim, in the Song of Songs, speaks of this beautiful dove. Who is it a reference to? So one understanding is that it's a reference to the Jewish people. But another explanation is that it's a reference to Moses, to Moshe Rabbeinu. Sheshakol keneged hakol. That why is he referred to the perfect dove? Because he is equal to all of them. That's the introduction. So it speaks about the fact that Moses is the perfect dove. Then it goes into the fact that he is equal to all of the Jewish people. And then it gives us this story with Rebbe that he surprised everyone with this amazing statement that one woman had 600,000 babies, which is really a reference to Moshe himself. So what is the idea? What is the dove? Why does the dove represent this concept of Moshe being the perfect one and that he is equal to all the other ones? What is the idea? What is the concept that our sages are teaching us here? Also, we see that the Yonah can refer to the Jewish people in the same way that it's referring to Moshe. So what is the concept? And the teaching needs to apply both to Moshe and to the Jewish people. So what is the idea here? So to answer this question, I want to share with you one more piece from the Medrash before, and we'll be able to see from that what's going on in the entire Medrash. What is the concept of the dove? The Medrash before is going through different comparisons between the dove and the Jewish people. And it says like this: Ma Yonah zo shogeres roglios harve v'chayzeres l'shevacha. Just like a dove goes out of its nest, then it looks around for food, gathers the food, then returns to its nest. Kach Yisrael, in the same way, the Jewish people do a parallel thing. They go out of their nest, so to speak, which is the land of Israel. They leave their proper place. They go out. They collect the mitzvahs. They collect the sparks of kedusha, the holiness that they need to, and they return to the land of Israel. Hadahu dichsiv. That's what the verse means when it says in Hosea chapter 11, verse 11, Yechardu ketzipor mimitzrayim zedar midbar. Speaks to the fact that the Jewish people had to go into exile, and they were in Egypt, and then they were in the wilderness, collecting those sparks to bring back to Israel. Just like a bird. Ukiyona me'eretz Ashur. And it speaks about the fact that the Jewish people are like a dove from the land of Assyria. Elo aser hashvatim. This is a reference to the 10 tribes, that they've gone out into exile, and then in the end, what's going to happen? Elu ve'elu v'hishavtim al bateim num Hashem. I'll return them to their homes, says God. Rabbi tells us something extremely interesting and extremely relevant. Yesh min yoina. There's a type of dove shemachilin maisa, that when you feed that dove, then all of its friends smell the fact that it's eating. They somehow know. And they all come to that nest. In the same way, when an elder sage of the Jewish people is sitting and he's saying divrei Torah, he's saying spiritual ideas, at that very moment, many proselytes are made. Many people become drawn to the Jewish people. They become part of the Jewish people at that time. Kigan Yisrei, Hushamava, for example, Jethro was somebody. Moshe Rabbeinu was teaching Torah. Jethro hears about it and he comes. Rachav Shamava Asya. Another famous proselyte was Rachav. Af Chanani, Mishael, Vazariah. Harbi Gerim Nisgar B'Yisrael. At the time of Chanani, Mishael, and Azariah, 3 great prophets, there were many proselytes that came at that time. Matam. What's the reason? So the Medrash quotes the verse. I'm actually going to read the whole verse. When my children see, and Rashi tells us on that verse, that's referring to the tzaddikim, the righteous ones, when they see the truth of the fact that God is in their midst. So the next verse says, all those who have made a mistake, all those who were unaware of God, become aware of God. When the Jewish people are aware, when the tzaddikim, the righteous individuals amongst the Jewish people, speak about God, so then it attracts gerim, it attracts proselytes, it's a spiritual message which is heard, and it brings them back. I know I said that was the last Medrash I'm going to read, but I have to read to you one more piece, which is the beginning of the Medrash, which we read over in our Parsha, but in Shir Hashirim there's an addition, and it's a really important one, and it's the essence here. And with that, we will take and explain everything that we've spoken about. It says like this: Kayonim, dugma didoch, domir lahado yoina. The Medrash tells us that if we look at the Jewish people, we will see that it's the same thing as the dove. Ma Yonah zo hevia or la'olam. Just like the purpose of the Yonah, the dove, was to bring light to the world. Af at mevia or la'olam. The Jewish people also bring light to the world. Shenemar, as the verse says, the verse tells us in Isaiah chapter 60 verse 3 that the nations of the world will go, they will walk based on your spiritual light. Now, where do we see that the dove brought light? When did that occur? Bimei Noach. In the times of Noach, in our verse. Hadahu dichsiv. That's what the verse says. Vatavo elav hayona leis erev. Very interesting. The dove returned in the time of the evening. Vinei alizayis tarpafia. And it had an olive branch in its mouth. Classically, olives are that which provides the oil which is needed to light a light. And so in the evening, when the light was waning, the Yonah, the dove, returns with the olive branch so that Noach can now have light inside of the dark teva, inside of that dark boat, even in the evenings, even at night. And the essence of what this teaching is telling us is that Noach was in a dark place. He was in a place where he couldn't see out. Until he took off the cover of the ark, he was not able to tell what was going on outside. It was dark for him, both literally and figuratively. So he needed the Yonah, he needed a bird. He needed specifically the dove, and the dove represents this concept of someone that has the ability to go out of a dark place, to transcend, to fly above that, and bring light from a place of light back into the place which is dark. The Medrash is telling us that the Jewish people have the same exact ability. The Jewish people somehow are able to transcend. They're able to get out of the darkness of this world, and they're able to transcend to a place where it's all light, and they're able to bring that light back into the world so that those who inhabit the lower realm, the lower spiritual realm, can use the light that's brought by them in order to light up the darkness of this realm. Now, the Jewish people plays that role for the nations of the world. The Jewish people are the ones who bring the light from outside, bring it down. And in the same way, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, does the same thing for the Jewish people. Moshe is the one who's able to transcend, to go up onto the mountain, to bring back the light of God to the Jewish people where they are and help them to be able to shine out that light. And now whenever he speaks, beautiful, whenever he speaks, the result is that that light shines out, and it calls to those who are spiritual and interested in seeing that light. And they are able to use that light as well. And that's the Gerim, the proselytes, those who convert to become part of the Jewish people as a result of the teachings of a Moshe Rabbeinu, as a result of the teachings of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are able to fly away from their nest, fly out from that place of darkness, from this world, and they're able to collect the sparks of light from all over, from the place which is transcendent. Just like a Yonah, just like a dove goes around and collects its food, brings it back, so too the Jewish people go out and find that spiritual sustenance and bring it back. And I'd like to bring it home by speaking about it in its really proper terms, because this idea is called the concept of the kollel, which is the all-inclusive aspect, which means that you have an aspect, really it's 70 and 71. You have 70 nations of the world. Then you have the Jewish people who are the all-inclusive aspect of the nations of the world. You have 70 offspring of Jacob, of Yaakov Avinu, and he is the all-inclusive aspect. All of the spirituality of the Jewish people is included in Yaakov. Yaakov has all of the spiritual genetics of all of his children, all of his 70 offspring. So he's the one who gives them the blessings, as we've spoken about in the past. And he's the one who draws down that light from above so that they can see it clearly for themselves and make use of it inside the darkness. Now, as I was preparing this Dvar Torah, so it occurred to me, it was very interesting that the Yonah, the dove, the gematria of the word Yonah, the numerical value, is 71. Thus, the dove represents the transcendent aspect, the kollel, the all-inclusive aspect. That's why the Yonah is sent in order to see what's going on. Noach can't see. He's inside of the darkness. He needs to send something that has the ability to transcend the darkness. That's the aspect of the kollel. That's the concept of 71, the 71st aspect, which parallels the Jewish people and parallels the tzaddik, the righteous individual. That's also why the Medrash speaks about Moshe Rabbeinu in this context as being the one who was born, who was inside of Yocheved, inside of that womb, which is also the transcendent aspect, which is the Sod HaIbur, is connected to the concept of the secret of impregnation. But the idea of it is that Moshe is that one who contains the 600,000. He's the one who's the tzaddik who has the spiritual, understands the spiritual abilities of all 600,000 of the members of the Jewish people. This is also the concept of the zayis, of the olive, because when you take the olive and you squeeze that olive, you get shem and you get oil. And one of the outstanding characteristics of oil is its ability to float above water. When you put water and oil together, the oil floats to the top, because it's the aspect of transcendence. It's that which is above and surrounding. When the Medrash tells us that the Yonah, in order to find that branch, went to Eretz Yisrael, or alternatively, it went to Gan Eden, it went to the Garden of Eden, what it's really telling us is that he went to a transcendent place. He went to a place which was beyond. He had the ability to transcend from the place where Noach was, bring back information from another place, which was a higher place, which was a more spiritual place, in order to reveal in the darkness what's to be done next, what direction Noach is to take. And the message of the dove to Noach and to us is that I'd rather take something which is transcendent. And honestly, it's hard to swallow, so to speak. It's hard to bring that spirituality down into this dark place. But I'd rather have something which is directly from God, tells the Yonah, tells the dove to us, to Noach, than having something which is in this dark place, which is sweet. I'd rather have that direct connection to God than have something which is from a human being, from a person. So the bottom line of the Medrash, what it's teaching us, and the message that we can take home with us, is that if we want to access spirituality from our dark place, we need to be like the Yonah, we need to be like the dove. We need to recognize the amazing spiritual power of the Jew, because we are compared to the Yonah, we are compared to the dove who can transcend and return, who can go out and gather those sparks of light and then return, who has the ability to be a light unto the nations, to shine that light within the dark place, who returns at evening and brings back an olive branch so that now there can be light on the darkened teva. So I want to bless you, and I ask you to please bless me. Hashem should help us to recognize our amazing spiritual power that we have. Hashem should help us to be able to access that transcendent spiritual light. Hashem should help us draw that light down into the darkness that we find ourselves in, into this world. Hashem should help us to shine that light out so that others can access it, and that the whole world can be lit up by the beautiful light of Yonossi Tamasi, that beautiful, perfect dove, which is the Jewish people. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.